From KPFK Pacifica Radio, this is Rising Up with Sonali, and I'm your host, Sonali Kolhatkar. You can watch this program on Free Speech TV and listen to it on Pacifica radio stations and affiliates nationwide. President Donald Trump's administration is struggling to find its footing in the new reality of the coronavirus pandemic. Just as it seemed as though the past 6 to 12 months of impeachment proceedings and the Special Counsel Robert Mueller's probe were a closed chapter in American politics, Trump, amidst the virus panic, announced that he was considering a pardon for his former National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn. Flynn was convicted of lying to the FBI and was one of the earliest Trump cabinet members to be disgraced. Now, the organization Consumer Watchdog has created a handy way to ensure Americans don't forget about Trump's dirty deeds: a deck of original playing cards. My guest is Jamie Court. He's the president of Consumer Watchdog and author of The Progressive's Guide to Raising Hell: How to Win Grassroots Campaigns, Pass Ballot Box Laws, and Get the Change You Voted For. He's one of the people who is behind the playing cards. Welcome to the program, Jamie.
Great to be back. Hi, Sonali.
So Trump's Raw Deal is the name of this deck of cards. This is not a book. This is literally a deck of playing cards. Tell me about how this particular project originated.
Well, it actually tells a story. If you play the cards, it's like reading a book. Particularly, there are 54 face cards. There are four jokers. There are four, two jokers extra than the 52 cards. There are four Trumps in the deck. But all the art is political art by an amazing LA artist named Charles Bragg, a political satirist, who's done some unbelievable pictures of the accomplices, from the Russians, from Mike Flynn, to the cabinet, and to Trump himself, one of the jokers who's Trump is playing golf, And basically, if you read a book or you play the card deck, what you're doing with the card deck is, who are these faces? Who is Andrei Kislyak? How does he relate as a one of the spades? He's the four of spades, and Mike Flynn is the three of spades. These are tools of Trump's, and the whole idea behind the deck is to remind people of all the people we forgot, from David Pecker to Michael Cohen, all the people in Trump's orbit who conspired to put him in the White House, including the Russians who helped elect him, who are all in this, really many of them in the spades category, to the broken hearts in his house, like Jeff Sessions, to the diamonds, like the billionaires Wilbur Ross and Betsy DeVos, to play cards like we ordinarily would do: blackjack, solitaire, maybe more appropriate when we're home with the coronavirus, or if you're playing with your family, gin rummy. And you start to look at the cards and you say, oh, who is that? What did he do? And then with the cards is this index of characters. So if you pick up, for instance, Michael Flynn, the three of spades, there's a little write-up about him and how he was the guy actually at the Democratic convention who led the chance lock her up to Hillary Clinton. And now we're looking at him possibly being locked up without this pardon, right? Or probably being locked up without this pardon, even though the sentencing hasn't happened. And, what did he do? He was a guy who went to Russia before the election and after the election, and met with Andrei Kislyak and others, and helped get some support even in December 2015 for Trump before the election. And he met at the same time that an NRA operative, who was the two of clubs, two of spades, Maria Butina, remember that redhead who was jailed as a foreign agent, was there, and the NRA funneled $30 million to the Republicans to elect Trump, and Flynn may have been in on that. So as you look at the faces, you start looking and see what you remember about the story, putting it together, and then you see how basically Trump's basically stacked this deck in this election, and people can get the cards at trumpsrawdeal.com for $20 to our campaign, to Consumer Watchdog's campaigns. It's not a tax deduction, but it is a contribution because we are a social welfare organization. And we'll mail you the cards, we'll mail you the index, and you can get for $50 3 packs, or $100 you get hand signed 6 packs with one hand sign, and you can start spreading it around in a safe way, right, to your family members who are home alone. They can play the cards, and it's a way to be politically active. Start talking to each other, reminding us why we need to get out to vote in November, what Trump did to America, and learning some history. So the art and the words work as a story.
Jamie, this president has changed the way in which we read the news and consume the news quite dramatically. As a journalist, I know that anything that I say or analyze would be out of date by the end of the day, sometimes within the hour. And that breathless speed at which the news changes results in so many of us simply forgetting what happened, forget about a week earlier, sometimes even a day earlier. Is that one of the main reasons why you produce this project? So we don't forget these names and faces? Because, like Sean Spicer, becoming a contestant in an American reality TV show, they are probably relying on us forgetting these associations.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was also why the artist did it. Chick Bragg, he exhibited at the LA Art Show, and we have a video on our website at consumerwatchdog.org of that exhibition. These are life-size, sketches and portraits, and then he shrunk it to the card. The irony is, they were so scary as portraits, it was hard to sell them. And I said, well, put them on cards, and people can play with them in the palm of their hands, and they'll feel better about them. And we started to work together on that format. And yes, this was all about reminding people. And look, just in the news, we have Roger Ailes, Murdoch as portraits. There's a guy in the Diamonds also, David Bossie, who, was the plaintiff in the Citizens United decision and turned into a deputy campaign manager for Trump. You see the nexus when you start to look at the faces and test your memory and then go refer to the index of the cards, either on the website. You can read them for free at trumpsrawdeal.com at the bottom of the website, or when you get the cards, we give you a very large printout of all who the people are. But yes, this is all about reminding the public of what they've forgotten. I mean, have we forgotten David Pecker? The guy who was the publisher of the National Enquirer and quieted all these stories for Trump. I mean, all the people we forgot. Michael Cohen, who's in jail. One of the favorite series I like is in the Spades. These are the tools for Trump. There are a lot of Russians, there are a lot of Ukrainians, and so you go from Michael Flynn, for instance, a guy named Felix Sater, who's got the Trump Tower Moscow, who funneled a lot of money to Trump's campaign. And in an email, he said, this was prior to the election, and it's in the Mueller report. Hey, buddy, and he was, talking to Mike Cohen, a lifelong friend. People in Russia really want to get Trump in office, and I think they can do it. Later, he said it was a joke. But if you start reading this, it's really obvious that the Russian government, the NRA in Russia, a lot of billionaires conspired to put Trump in. And what we're forgetting is that, Putin, who is the ace of spades, by the way, and I think it's a masterful political caricature, was really upset with Obama over the economic sanctions after Putin invaded Ukraine. And he was upset at Obama. And obviously, that was one of the motivations for meddling in the U.S. elections, is a well-established fact. But if you look at more than the meddling through Facebook, and Zuckerberg's here because his platform allowed a lot of the social engineering of rigging this election, you see that, there were a lot of people who conspired in the Russian oligarchy to put Trump in. And for instance, Julian Assange got and released the DNC server emails with Hillary right at the time that we were about to be very angry at Trump, women in particular, over this Access Hollywood outrageous comment about grabbing women's private parts, and changed the total conversation. He got that from someone online called Lucifer, who was a Russian intelligence agent. This was all the subject of the meetings in the Trump Tower in June, the dirt, and all the people from the Russian ambassador Kislyak to the people in that meeting, the lawyer from the Ukraine. These are cards and portraits that remind us of everything Trump and his accomplices done to occupy the White House under really, really outrageous political electioneering and maybe even illegal terms. And as we're in this crisis and the wagons are circling and everybody, who's in the political opposition voice is going to be a little bit less, is going to be a little dulled because we don't want to attack the president in a crisis. These cards are a way to remember the history, the past, and the art really brings it home. When you look at some of these faces, Chick Bragg just really, he was so angry, and this is what he did for 4 years, was make art. after the election. And this is a way of making it, $20, and you got 54 political portraits, and you can play the cards, and you can talk to your kids about it. It's a way to homeschool your kids. I do that with my 13 and 16-year-old. I make them play some cards, and I tell them who these people are.
Going back to what you were saying regarding Julian Assange, a lot of people on the left have trouble accepting his role in the Trump election, and he has become a hero of sorts to many on the left.
It's amazing. You're right, Sonali, because we posted, one of our board members posted a bonus card. It's not in the deck, but it was a couple of weeks ago, Bernie as the King of Hearts. As opposed to the King of Broken Hearts, Ace of Broken Hearts, which was Trump. And someone on Twitter went after her, and she's got a really good following, saying, "Oh, and by the way, that deck puts Assange in with the Russians." Well, it is established fact that he got that information on Hillary Clinton's server from Lucifer 2.0, who was a Russian intelligence agency. This is the Mueller report, and he released it. And that is how Trump got elected. Now, Assange has all sorts of political agendas, including things that many of us who are progressive would agree with in terms of outing corporations or outing governments that should be outed. But this was a key element, maybe the key plot point in how Trump overcame that Access Hollywood tape, which was devastating. I mean, for women across America, that was devastating. And only something like this, the release of the emails. By the way, Comey's in here too. There's a great portrait of Comey. And people are like, why you put Comey in there? He was not exactly on Trump's side.
James Comey, former FBI director, yeah.
Yeah, FBI. His decision to reopen the Hillary server issue, whether it was fumbling or not, did conspire to create this conditions by which the release of those emails changed the dialogue, with Zuckerberg platform being used as, and by Cambridge Analytica, as well as the Russians, Cambridge Analytica was the firm that basically used this psychological platform that Zuckerberg had to profile people and target them with false propaganda that would get them to vote the wrong way or not to vote or turn them off to Hillary Clinton or whatever it was through lies, and it looked like real news. And all of this is why we are where we are today. And so these cards are very much a history lesson in why we can't forget. And we want to put it in people's hands. And I really believe, I play cards with my kids during summer. It's really fun when we have downtime. Now we have downtime. We're starting to play cards again because what else are you going to do, right? Play on your screens. And when I was growing up, my dad and his parents, my mom and her parents, I used to be under one house, and this was in the late 70s, early 80s. So, they would be very different. My one grandfather was a socialist. The other was a New York cop Republican. And they talked like Archie Bunker all in the family, about, the commies and the Reds. And it was crazy as a kid to hear that. But they would do it over gin rummy. And they would talk. And they would work it out. And they would still be family. And I think if we had more conversations over cards, and worked out some of these issues and in a provocative deck like this, they're going to cause some conversations. As a nation, we do a lot better than atomizing. And right now, with the coronavirus, the real danger is we atomize. We go to our corners. We don't talk. Cards are a way of connecting, and particularly for the younger generation and for others who may need some education, the people in the swing states, looking at this deck and thinking about what the art says and what the words say about the people will give you an idea of why progressives, frankly, have it as a categorical moral imperative to get rid of this president.
Jamie, let's talk a little bit more about the art on these cards. For our radio audience in particular, our TV audience has a chance to see the imagery, and you've mentioned the artist a couple of times, but these are quite hellish-looking versions of the faces of these real people, and they don't have eyes.
Yeah, none of them. Yes, they don't have eyes because the artist Chick Bragg said he couldn't. He started drawing them with eyes, but he had to take them out because these people don't have souls. And I think it's tremendously effective. When he drew Bernie, and we call him the raging art man, Chick Bragg. And if you go to trumpsrawdeal.com, you can go to his site and learn about him. But it does have this impact of even Rex Tillerson, right, who may be anonymous, the one blowing the whistle on the industry. He doesn't have eyes, and it's just a tremendous. But there's a lot of detail otherwise, and it really sends a message that these folks are not working when they work for Trump or are still working for Trump in the public interest for our world. They're working literally for the personal ambition of one man, and that's what the Trump administration was. And I think it's you're an artist, Sonali, I don't know what you think, but I think it's a very effective tactic, but it also makes them scary. And that's why we shrunk them down the cards, because it is a scary deck. Barbara Boxer said, boy, they scare the hell out of me. And I know a lot of these people. But I love it because it scares me into remembering, and it makes us remember. So I don't know what you think about the tactic, but I thought it was very effective.
Right, to have the eyeless faces, maybe for kids over the age of 5 or 6, because it might be a little bit scary.
I think the younger generation may need to be woken up. But yes, I think that it's true. There probably should be a parental advisory for kids over 8.
Tell me how these cards have been grouped. You've mentioned the spades and the clubs. How did you group them? Because this is a very large, disparate group of people. And I should mention you have, Trump's own family members there as well, because they are part of the government. Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner and Trump Jr. How did you group them?
Well, yeah, and that was a subject to some discussion with the artists. But what we decided to do was the spades were the tools. So a lot of Russians, going from Maria Butina all the way up to Julian Assange to Mark Zuckerberg. These are the people who really, were the tools by which Trump took power and maintained power in a really unethical way. That's why Putin is the ace of spades, because he was clearly Trump's ace of spades. The diamonds are arranged so that these are the wealth, the rich people. From Wayne LaPierre, the NRA, who brought the money, 30 million, much of it potentially from Russia, as Mueller pointed to Trump's election, to the Gary Cohens, the DeVosses, the people, the Wilbur Rosses, the billionaires in the administration, and the guys like David Bossie, who was behind Citizen United, who allowed money to rule. Also, former cabinet secretaries who exploited for their own personal gain. Scott Pruitt, the Interior Secretary, who abused public resources. The Health and Welfare Secretary is the two of diamonds, Tom Price. And if you remember him, one of the reasons we have such a terrible response to the coronavirus is, in the early administration, this guy flew around on private jets trying to destroy Obamacare, and then he got outed for it and had to step down. And then when we go to the broken hearts, these are people who were in the close family whose hearts were broken in one way or another by Trump. And you could go from Ivanka Trump with Ivanka tattooed on her head to Sean Spicer, who I love the Spicer portrait because he's got 3 mouths. He's talking out of both sides of his mouths. This guy's a very clever artist, Charles Bragg. He lived this for the last few years. And then you have, people like Cohen. You have the people who are in the inner circle, Sarah Sanders. And you remember all these people, and then we get to the clubs, and these are all the people in the clubs. Of course, the king of clubs is Mitch McConnell, but for Mitch McConnell, we might have an impeachment vote, right? We might have impeachment trial. We might have witnesses in an impeachment trial rather than just a bunch of dueling statements. And so the clubs are all the people who are in the club who help Trump maintain his power, like Devin Nunes, who recently made some crazy statements like we shouldn't hoard in a grocery store, but let's go out to our local restaurants and patronize them, and has protected Trump, literally like a pit boss on the floor of the House of Representatives. So it was organized thoughtfully, and also the order given them is weight. So that's why Putin is the king of is the most powerful card in most games, which is the ace of spades, because of what he did to help Trump. McConnell's got the king of clubs. Assange is very high. So when you start to talk about the cards, why is this guy the 5 of clubs? Well, maybe he wasn't that powerful. Why is she? Why is DeVos, low on there, but on there on the diamonds? So we really had a big conversation about who should belong where, and there were over 100 portraits, so we had to throw out half of them. So there's a lot more art. And
right.
There are some heroes too, and they all have eyes, but they're not in this deck.
Right. There's only 52 cards in a deck, and there's more than 52 people who have gone in and out of the Trump administration. Of course, some people in the deck are still part of the administration. Others are no longer part of the administration. Again, hoping perhaps that we'll forget who they are and what they did. Well, give out again the website where people can get a copy of the playing cards.
TrumpsRawDeal.com, Trumps with an S, rawdeal.com, as in thinking of an apostrophe, TrumpsRawDeal.com. And for $20 ante, we're paying for postage. We'll mail it to you with the deck. I mean, I was just looking at one card. Rick Perry, have we forgotten about him? The guy who wanted to export, the independence fuel to America. I mean, it really is a remembrance for all the people who've come and gone and departed this administration. And for a $20 ante, not only do you get the deck, but you also support Consumer Watchdog campaigns work. This is the committee we use for ballot measures. We're doing one for medical insurance accountability this year. So all the proceeds support Consumer Watchdog campaigns general work to protect consumers in the ballot measure process.
Right, and that's a really important part of it, is what it's actually benefiting and will be going toward funding. Again, that website, trumpsrawdeal.com. We'll post a link to that from our website later today as well. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck.
Thank you, as always, Sonali, and thank you for all you do to keep us enlightened in these really hard times.
My guest has been Jamie Court. He's the president of Consumer Watchdog and author of The Progressive's Guide to Raising Hell: How to Win Grassroots Campaigns, Pass Ballot Box Laws, and Get the Change You Voted For. He's one of the brains behind the Trump's Raw Deal, a set of playing cards about members of the Trump administration. I'm Sonali Kolhatkar. We're online at risingupwithsonali.com, where you can sign up for our daily newsletter. Find our audio podcast on iTunes and Spotify.